Welcome. If you're wondering what's happening today, I'm just going live. I'll be doing this in the future on a schedule. Should be Fridays at 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific. Well, I'll be going live. I'll be recording some upcoming YouTube videos live. I'll be entertaining questions, talking with people, doing a bit of office hours as well. Probably the first hour will be, probably the first half hour will be dedicated towards the couple videos I have coming up. And then the second or the last hour and a half-ish hour will be towards just questions, doing research, talking about using Craft, talking about using Obsidian, anything like that. So today we're covering Strong Towns by Charles Marone. I should probably get that book. And should you use Craft as a task manager is another topic we're going to cover. But let me get the book, and then we can kind of get going and do some recording. I'm on a limited time today. Well, I got two viewers. Hello. Leave comments if you want. If you missed it, I'm going to record a review of this book, and that will actually become my YouTube video. I'm going to talk about using Craft as a task manager. So once I've done this recording for this, once I've got this kind of clean file to use later, then I will actually dive into any questions if you have for a little bit, and then I will dive back out into using Craft as a task manager, that video, and then at the end of that we can ask some questions if you have that, and that'll probably be it for today. So, let me just get my script ready here and get started. Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about Strong Towns. We're doing a bit of a different video today because I'm actually live streaming this. So after this, which YouTube scheduled people will not see, I'll be entertaining questions about this or talking some other stuff, and then I'll be recording another video. Should be Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific. I should be doing live streaming of upcoming topics, some research, and just what's going on. So today, Strong Towns. For a while now, I've been wanting to read about what makes a strong town infrastructure-wise, community-wise, and based on a recommendation from a YouTube channel, Not Just Bikes. I'll be linked below in the description, and I'll actually be playing a video from them in the middle of this at one point. But based on that, they said, hey, you should get Strong Towns. So I did. And the big goal of his book here is to just look at what makes a strong town from a fiscal, financial perspective. So before I get into that, a couple ways to support the channel. You can show up and you can go live with me on Fridays at 2 p.m. You can become a patron at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale, or you can take one of my Skillshare courses. There'll be a link below in the YouTube video to my Skillshare course on Zettelkasten, how to get started with that, which is really the system I use to make all these book notes, everything else. Or you can go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare, then you can find my course on Zettelkasten. All right, let's buckle up and review Strong Towns. So Strong Towns, like I said, is about building good infrastructure for cities. And he opens up a lot of this by talking about cities of the past were built for thousands of years, kind of on trial and error. And what we had after the World War II was some European intellectuals said, hey, we should build towns this other way, which is what we have today in North America. And their entire culture rejected it. And we look in North America, often look at cities and say, boy, I wish our cities were more like these European cities, but we just don't have it right now because we went with this boundless optimism. And there was so much prosperity at the beginning after World War II that we could literally just keep moving in any direction and we would see benefits. So that's what we have right now with our cities. We had so much abundance then that we could just do anything and we were good. This abundance masked the terrible design of the cities though, and when faced with the major problems like traffic congestion, we just said, hey, let's just build more. We didn't say, hey, this is actually a problem with our city design. We're just going to build more, keep going, and then we'll be good. And we had more lanes, which don't actually decrease congestion at all. It just actually makes it more possible for people to go to cities to travel. People are more likely to travel then. Highways are terrible, actually. Yeah. The more you increase highway capacity, the more people drive. It doesn't actually solve anything long term. While I've highlighted highways so far, subdivisions are also a big Ponzi scheme, really. According to Strong Towns, I'm going to show you a video from Not Just Bikes in a second. That subdivision with large yards doesn't actually bring in the tax revenue to support itself. I won't show you this part in the video, but in the video they talked a little bit earlier in this about how cities get a lot of their funding for subdivisions from different levels of government that are not city, but then a city has to maintain it all the time. And that's why it's a Ponzi scheme, because the infrastructure gets paid off early by other people, and then the cities have to maintain it for the rest of their lives. So at 25 years, you have a whole subdivision that's going down, and what really keeps it up is another subdivision that doesn't need all this extra stuff yet, doesn't need all the extra maintenance, so it can continue to support that old subdivision that does need it. The subdivision doesn't actually pay for itself. And let's actually watch the video so you can see that.
To explain this problem further, I'll use the example of a, quote, ideal development that is often used as an example by strong towns. Imagine a new suburban housing development on the edge of town. In this case, the developer completely pays for the street and turns it over to the city for maintenance. The residents move in and start paying tax revenue. This couldn't get any better for the suburban municipality. Free development, free road, a bunch of new tax revenue. This is awesome. Now, the municipality in this case would put a little bit of money aside for the maintenance of that road. So what would this look like in an American suburb? Well, at first, streets don't need a lot of maintenance. They may require some minor repairs such as filling cracks, but in general, new streets are pretty cheap. So the suburban city's cash flow looks something like this. Everything looks pretty great until the end of the street's life cycle, because eventually all streets and roads need resurfacing. So suddenly, the graph goes like this. If the city were just this one street, it would already be bankrupt. But cities aren't just one street. They're made up of hundreds of streets and individual developments. So assuming a new development every other year, a real growing city's cash flow would look something like this, with new developments covering the cost of past developments. As you can see, growth covers the problem, and the city is financially solvent again. Yay, this is great! Let's build more! Lots of asphalt and free parking for everyone! But when you get a couple of generations into the suburban experiment, the maintenance obligations of the past start to catch up with you. Suddenly, your suburb's finances start to look something like this. Because when you lose money on every development, you don't make it up in volume.
So you can see there that cities or suburbs are a Ponzi scheme, that we're just not going to really pay it off long term at all. He cites Detroit there as a big example of the current ones, one of the first cities built centered around cars, and how it just can't maintain its infrastructure, and now Detroit is used as like a bad example of a city. So I've also seen this, all right, just really reminded me of when I used to teach financial management courses. And I talked to people, and literally every single person would be like, hey, I am the exception to the rule. I do not spend 12 to 18% more because I use a credit card. And the truth is that you are, and everyone is not the exception. Even my friend who was a software developer, single guy, saved tens of thousands of dollars a year, did not spend a lot of money. But when I challenged him to not use his credit card for a month, he said, I will never use a credit card again because that was so terrible. I saved so much money. So every city will say they're the exception, but they're not. Not everyone can be the exception. Almost no one is, in fact. So then the question is, what is a good city design? And Marone takes a look at a lot of older cities to see how we should be building our cities now. Citing street vendors in Pompeii, you can see all the streets or all the houses faced forward. So there's only one kind of policing area. You could walk down the street and see all the entrances to the houses. They had a shop up front, a living space in the back. And then one parent could go out and watch the kids, or one parent could go to the fields, and then one parent could stay home and watch the kids, tend the shop. It also meant that all your neighbors faced the same way. Your neighbor could keep an eye on your stuff, you could keep an eye on your neighbor's stuff, and it was just a lot easier to maintain. Now, we experience a little bit of this with co-working, although our work hasn't caught up to it, right? So I've worked at home for 12 years. Nothing's really changed for me in COVID. But my wife has started to work at home more often now, and like either of us can take care of our 4-year-old. But a lot of works haven't caught up to that, where they still expect, and I've seen, nannyware, I would call it spyware, bossware on your computer, where it's like literally checking your camera regularly to make sure that you are focusing on only that task. This, despite, as I've learned in another reading, that worker productivity has continued to increase while their wages have not. So we've been doing more and more and more for our jobs and getting less and less in return for that productivity we have. So in contrast, we see like that shop owner in Pompeii work for themselves. They're only responsible to themselves. If they took an afternoon off, that was kind of up to them. It also means really at a home level, we need to stop letting kids do nothing, do almost nothing. And Why We Can't Sleep by, I believe it was Ada Calhoun. There'll be a link above to that, or a link below in the actual YouTube video for this. We were presented with the idea that kids aren't responsible for major chores like they have been in the past, which pushes all the household maintenance onto parents. Instead of kids having to do some stuff, parents do everything. Which is just not tenable. Like, really, realistically, you got 5 people in the house doing something. You should require my 4-year-old to unpack the silverware at least. To add to this, a lot of stay-at-home moms specifically tag along everywhere with kids as their supervisors or servants. We saw that in Selfish Reasons to Have Kids on page 3. Instead of the community that would help watch kids, we have a community that calls Child Protective Services to say, hey, your kid is not okay. I was actually thinking about this today on my bike ride with my wife, that if you can afford your own space and have your kid playing in your backyard, then it's okay to let your kid out into your own backyard. But if you have to use public infrastructure because you can't afford the space it requires to have your own private outdoor space, then you're more likely to get child services. And that's really an economic... That's not racism. I can't think of the right word though. Like, it's an economic thing. Like, we are limiting space and what freedom parents can have based on their economic ability to afford space. So if you have to use public infrastructure, public space like the park across the street, I gotta be a lot more concerned about what people will say about my kids. If I just letting them out, if I had like a big backyard the size of that, I wouldn't have to worry about it because it's my backyard, which sucks. It sucks. And it's like economic, even in Ontario, they were just saying, I read a good article recently about all the things that are really allowed outside during their current lockdown are all things that rich people can do, like go golfing. And anything that people with less money can do is all restricted. So it's not fair. It's not fair. It's the rich people allowing advantage to themselves, really. Yeah. So how do we fix it is the big question. Now, Marone has a bunch of suggestions around how to fix the state of cities in North America. Many of them are going to be totally unpopular. He would disparage. That's a good one. Jeff, thank you. It's in the comments if you're watching this video later. So he voted for abandoning a lot of the suburbs, really. And that would specifically be all these rich suburbs saying, hey, you got to take care of your own space. If you want your roads kept up, if you want all this stuff, you got to do it on your own. We're not doing it, because when you look at the tax infrastructure that comes in from a subdivision versus like the bad downtown area that's, kind of dilapidated, it brings in far, far more. One of the interesting things was like those 5 downtown old buildings you think are disgusting bring in like probably twice the income to the city as Walmart does, because Walmart's gonna get all these tax breaks, and then when they're gone, they basically move on, and that building is almost useless for anything else in the city without it being torn down. So you'd abandon a lot of these old rich suburbs and say you got to do it yourself, and some of them would literally pay the money to do it, but some of them will just die because it's literally not worth it for the city to maintain them. But also, when you look at that, these richer suburbs have the people that are willing to bug politicians, to spend their money to bug politicians instead of taking responsibility for the infrastructure that they need. They'd rather bug politicians and abdicate their responsibility onto other people. You can watch another video, which will be linked in the YouTube video later. I can even share this into chat right now if you guys want to watch it on your own time or save it. That talks more about this again, just a different, not just bikes video. I'll add that to chat for those that are live. It looks at 2 blocks in the city and the revenue they generate, where one's like a Taco Bell, I think, and one is like an old, not so great downtown. And basically it generates like 4 or 5 times, if I remember correctly, the revenue that nice new Taco Bell or restaurant does. So instead of looking at total taxes that a business pays, we should really be looking at taxes per acreage, he says. So how much tax revenue do you bring per acre of land you occupy? And that's going to severely advantage most of those old downtown buildings, most of those high density buildings. He also talked about loosening up zoning codes so that you can put a business up in your garage if you want to. You can split a house from a single family dwelling into multifamily housing without having to go through all this stuff. Because again, right now we see a lot of basically rich white people being able to say, I don't like that, and they have the time to bug everyone and make it shut down. So like 3 people can stop something that's really beneficial for like thousands in a city, which is dumb. And we need to stop pushing for new stuff only and praise those that do maintenance. It's another big thing, right? You see all these stories about, oh, this new building is so good, but we don't ever see like, oh, this guy keeps cleaning all the walls really well. So we need to prioritize maintenance and turn it into something that's really cool. So, should you read Strong Towns by Charles Marone? Absolutely. I think it was a great book on city infrastructure. I'm looking forward to reading some other ones I have that are more into cycling infrastructure. This is more from the fundamental city design level. And that makes sense. He's an architect. I think it's an architect? Architect. So he goes in or architect and engineering firm. He goes in and like helps cities design themselves. So that's where that came from. It's really good. I also recommend their site as well. Very, very good site. That's it. If you like the video, you can give me a thumbs up below. For those that are watching on YouTube later, for those live people, you can just hang on and we'll entertain some questions in a second if you want to. You can head over to Patreon, become a patron at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale, or you can take my Skillshare course, which will be linked below later in the YouTube video, or you can go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare and look up my Zettelkasten courses, probably the one you're most interested in. That's it. Thanks. So Gale, classism. Yeah, that's probably a better word even, Gale. Thank you for that. That is probably a better word. Classism. I was thinking that today as I saw some kids playing in their backyard, jumping on the trampoline, thinking like, okay, that's like, there's clearly a kid that's like my 4-year-old's age playing back there, and that's okay because you can afford this big yard, but I am not allowed to let my 4-year-old go play in the park across the street. It has very little to do with the increased safety that a backyard brings. Because I'm 40, I grew up in the 80s, and basically I grew up in a murder epidemic. Like, kids were being snatched, and like so much worse. Kids are so much safer now that I basically grew up in a murder epidemic. So, but now we are much stricter about what kids are allowed to do, in theory for their own good, but not really. Not really at all, actually. It's mostly just for, again, we'll say rich white people being able to complain about stuff and worrying about like, oh, what if this really bad things happens? And the what if pretty much never happens. Just never happens. So next up, we're going to talk about craft and task management. Let me just get set up here. If you have any questions about that, I can grab them now before I start recording the video, and have a little bit of time after. Oh, someone gave a thumbs up. Still learning the new eCam stuff. I don't know who it is. Oh well. I am more of a let's just get it done first, and then once I get it done a couple times, then I start worrying about making it really perfect. So I gotta find the right note to talk about this. Maybe my courses. Yeah, my courses might be a good one. I should bring up things as well, because that's a task manager that I use. And let's make sure there's nothing terrible in it. Current innovative town planning. Did it. Yeah, and it talked a lot about some infrastructure as well. Let me just go back through. You know what? I can maybe even just bring up my note scale on it quickly. Strong towns. There we go. I think I can do that. Yeah. So it talked about human habitat first. It talked about, again, Pompeii, which I talked about a little later in mine. Just hide the pip, actually. Oh, it's locked, isn't it? There we go. No pip. It talked about the street vendors you can see there. It talked about overly complicated systems. That was actually an interesting point. Ben, oh, you know what keyboard I'm typing on. You've done a lot of videos on that, Ben. It is the, let me see, I'm just getting everything going right here. Does that work? Oh, my scene's locked. Hang on. You know what the keyboard that is. A little too bright right now. Yeah, that's a Moonlander. Cool. Now let me go back to my other camera. So Gale, it was talking about overly complicated systems don't get stronger, they break, but our cities are designed way overcomplicated. Once they load, they break because they're overly complex with their zoning laws. Talk about incremental growth. So old cities, talking about that and saying, here's an old city, it got built up a little bit. Key switches, I think it was brown, but I've got silvers, Kale silvers in the back, which I haven't put in yet. I need to. I think it was the brown. I don't even know. You know what? I wonder if I can just pull it off and tell you. Yeah, they're brown. From something. Yeah, so modern city building creates, right here, I'm going to drag that, right? Creates efficient pods of static monoculture and a subdivision, but then the subdivision is never allowed to change. That's a problem. Right, all the roofs fail around the same time. So it's actually good to have diversity and growing. And then cities play an infinite game was another good point as well. What are we doing here? I think I'm late. You are autofocused. I'm recording 2 YouTube videos, autofocused, and I'm entertaining questions in between. So I just talked about Strong Towns by Charles Marone, and I'm going through some of the questions we have. And I'm going to talk about craft as a task manager. So I'll kind of record that, and then I'll do some questions after, and I'm limited time today, so we'll get into it. Fridays at 2 o'clock will be my regular streaming time, but we had vacation. I took my kids skiing instead. Infrastructure cult, right? Infrastructure is always good. That's an interesting point, which you didn't cover in the review, that a highway lane saving set is what they're really saying is that people are going to save like 30 seconds on a commute. Then they figure out how many hours that is over 50 years and add it up to the wages saved. But most of these are commuters that are forced to live way out of the suburbs because everything's too expensive anyways. And then it doesn't actually pay off like that because the highways fill up way faster than they say. But we get confirmation bias out of that, right? Right there. Which only looks at the supporting points. Yeah. And he said that, what does he say? The most commonly cited financial benefit of transit investment comes from freeing up highways, but we don't really ever see that. I think I read somewhere else that you need to make, maybe it was on Strong Towns, I love that. No, sorry, not Strong Towns, not just bikes, where it talked about basically making cities or streets harder to use increases transit. They also argue that's good for poor people because they can live really far outside of the city, but that doesn't address any of the main points. Doesn't address any of the inequality that doesn't allow people to live in the city where they're supposed to work because they got to work those cheap jobs. Or they need someone to work those low-paid jobs, right? Talked about growth or stability. Stagflation was an interesting point as well. That's a period of both rising prices and rising unemployment. Up in the 1970s, conventional wisdom said that when unemployment rose, prices would go down to accommodate the lack of demand because people had less money to spend. I'm going to come back to that as well. But I don't know. That was just a tag. It only links from one spot. I think it was an interesting point, so I pulled it out on its own. And you can see, like, this is my notes for books create 2 purposes. One of them is to do the reviews here, and one of them is to, like, create longer notes, right? Added income for women didn't increase prosperity. Debt is future consumption. So when we take out debt in our cities, we're just consuming for our children instead. And the paradox of thrift was another one. When people start saving money instead of spending it, the whole economy pays as others start to save because money is not in circulation. That's popularized by John Maynard Keynes. Rational responses. So any solution says we must maintain our infrastructure is terrible because we just can't. I talked about white flight as well. It was just a tag, I think. I didn't actually do anything with that yet, but they talked about white flight. So some of these things also just tag so that if I want to look up white flight later, I can find all the books that was in. When you have to walk across a 4-lane road on an unmarked crossing to get to the necessity of life, like food, it just magnifies all the struggles of life. I just read by Gary Cantrell in Ultra Running Magazine. So Gary Cantrell, you heard of the Barkley Ultra Marathons. It's on Netflix. He runs that. Lazarus Lake is his other name he goes by. But he just talked about walking across the country and seeing that this beautiful, subdivision on one side, and on the other side, a black subdivision got divided by the road. Because black people didn't have the money to say no. And then it goes around all the white neighborhoods. But now there's an unmarked crossing. You have to like dive across 4 lanes of road to get to the other side, to get to the necessities of life. That was an interesting one. I just kind of read that today. This morning after coffee. And there's no such thing as maintenance free. Productive places. In countries that have less resources, they just don't waste. So you see totally different building. We have so much that we can just do. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at with everything. I hope that answered your question, Gail. And then a bunch of the books they referenced, right, are here. Anti-Fragile, The Death and Life of American Cities. A pattern language. That's been recommended a few times by people, actually. A pattern language. Even in some other streams or some other chats, I've seen that too, based if you like this. In my Discord channel. I don't know if I can get a link to that quick, but there'll definitely be one in the video later if you want to see it. The World Until Yesterday, The Black Swan, another good one. The Crash Course, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here. So Black Swan was mentioned twice, you can see, 120 and 59. Walkable City and Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging. That's it. What else? Are there any questions in here? Did that. Jeff did that. Bill. Jeez, that book, ever talk about how to combat people who are squeaky wheel making positive change to infrastructure. It didn't really, outside of saying you make them take care of their own subdivisions. So they have to. And they can just they can actually deal with the real expense themselves instead of having it offset by other people. I'll go back to my default scene so you can hear me. Still learning I'm using the eCam switcher, but on my phone, because I want the 30 key. And every review I've heard people say about it, about the 30 key, about the 15 key is, hey, you should just, I only got the 15 key because I couldn't afford the 30 right now. And I figured I have a phone to use, so I'll just use that and I'll get the 30 key later. So task management and craft is the next video. And there'll be more time for questions after if you want that. Oh, I should shut down Garmin Express. It just syncs my bike computer. So my bike ride earlier today, Safari, everything. Good. Task management and craft. All right, so I'm gonna do my intro for YouTube, and then I'm going to go through kind of what I want to talk about. And then we will entertain some more questions about craft and about some other stuff for a little bit before my... Good. Thanks for coming, Ben. Good to see you. Fridays, 2 o'clock is when I'll probably be trying to stream most weeks. 2 o'clock Pacific. All right, let's warm up. Let's get some blank so I can easily chop it later and kind of... I have a little bit of a buzz in my audio, so I want to definitely kill that for the regular YouTube stuff. So today we're going to talk about craft as a task manager. Should you use it? I've seen a lot of people say, hey, I got to use craft as a task manager, or really anything as a task manager. That's maybe not a specific traditional task manager. And that's what we're going to talk about. Before we do that, a couple of ways to support the channel. Number one is to become a patron at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale. Number two is to take one of my Skillshare courses. You can find my link to Zettelkasten down below, or you can go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare, take my course on Zettelkasten. Or another thing you can do if you want to kind of interact a little bit is Fridays, 2 o'clock Pacific, I will be streaming. That's actually what I'm doing now, streaming this video, and then I will chop it up for YouTube later. All right, now we're going to talk about craft as a YouTube thing. Craft as a task manager, so buckle up. All right. So craft is a task manager. Should you use it? I make this super simple for you. No, you shouldn't be using this as a task manager. It's not a task manager, people. But let's take a longer look at this, really. I get it. You want a tool that does everything, that makes it easy, air quotes, to do everything. And the truth is you're just never going to find it. There is no one tool that will do everything. You don't see a carpenter saying, hey, I really wish I had something that was a really good screwdriver and I could use as a hammer too, and better be a knife as well. And it should be all these other tools, and a skill saw, better be a skill saw too. Like, it just doesn't happen, because when you think about that, you're like, well, of course, that's a terrible idea. Why would I do that? That tool is going to be, number one, terrible at most of the things, or barely passable at most of the things, and it's just going to be a pain in the butt to use. And yet, we still want to take any piece of software, and can this piece of software be my end-all, be-all, everything piece of software for everything I want to do? And it can't. It just can't. Yeah, it just can't. And really, even those screwdrivers you can get that have like a whole bunch of bits in them and you can switch them around, they're only okay. They're not spectacular. So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't always use it, or you should never use it to track any type of tasks. I'm going to show you the type of tasks that I actually do track in Craft, so you can see really the only place I think it's useful. Everywhere else I think it is not useful as a task manager. So what I do keep track of in Craft, you can even see in my old Zettelkasten course, is all the resources I was going to go through. This is a project-specific kind of task list. Have I gone through all of these resources? And that's it. That's the only thing that is really useful for. You can see it from my upcoming reading course as well. Reading Well, How to Read a Book, The Reading Mind, Reading Brain. Look at Xiaomi. He has a video about 4 more questions you should ask when you're reading. And that's really it. It's not useful. If you're going to use a task manager, there's like so many that are better. There's things, right? You can see I need to, I already did this. I bought that bike for my daughter. I need to enter in some mileage. I'm not going to click through everything because I'm not 100% sure, but I can go to my inbox. Like, it's really good for me to go through and add tasks quickly, right? I can add them quickly. The space bar, add task, and then put it in. This is my new task. There's not really a global hotkey that you can have for craft, unfortunately. It would be nice in some respects, but it's just not there. Really, I think you should keep them separate. You should be doing your tasks in a task manager, things 3, OmniFocus, Fire Task, Trello, I don't care which one, and leave craft, leave Obsidian, leave Roam, leave all these other things for your notes, for your research, for your thoughts on something. And that's it. Don't stick them all together. You're going to basically have a terrible task manager, and then your research, your reading, that type of stuff is simply going to be cluttered up with a bunch of crap that you do not want to see most of the time. That's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, you can give me a thumbs up below. If you loved it, you can subscribe, hit the bell. YouTube should be letting you know when things happen then. But honestly, turn all your notifications off. Who wants notifications all the time? Read, work, hang with your kids, do stuff like that. Other ways to support the channel are to become a patron at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale, or to take one of my courses on Skillshare. You can find the links to them below in the YouTube description that's going to come up. Or you can go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare, where you can just sign up. I get a kickback off that. Thanks very much. And then the streaming, we're going to be doing my videos are going to be streamed first. And I'll be taking questions. Like today, we talked about the keyboard I have. Ben asked about that. Ben Valek has a great YouTube channel. I wonder if I can find it real quick and just send you right there for those that are here. YouTube. Especially on the, oh look, there's me streaming right now. Right over there. There we go. Ben, there you go, Ben Valek. He has a great YouTube channel right here on, okay, this is a little weird one. I haven't seen this yet, but Ben, I don't know what you did here. Designing a keyboard layout. I actually don't want to play this, but designing a keyboard layout. He's got a whole bunch of cool keyboard stuff, even on the keyboard that I have right now and I'm using. So Ben's got a great channel. You should subscribe to that. That's it. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. If you want to interact with questions, Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific. Ciao. And that's it for my recorded videos for the day, really. Oh, my little tripod I have here. I need to go get a screwdriver for it. So any questions about this? I mean, we answered a few about strong towns if you're here earlier. We talked about city infrastructure. So if I got a bit more time before I need to run off, I got to make my wife's cake today. It's her birthday. I got to wrap her presents, stuff like that. Or is there anything else you want to see in how I use craft? Feel free to ask questions. I got a bit of time for that. Otherwise, I can just kind of dig into my DevonThink database and probably read an article, which would be kind of slow for you guys, but that is what I do. That's what Fridays will be. Some streaming, some talking about stuff. I'd like to, and this will happen next time, have, next time, maybe the time after, might be a couple weeks, but I'll have a new dock set up. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to buy this Thunderbolt 4 dock. Amazon.ca. See, oh yeah, we had to look at treadmills. We broke ours recently. Just like last week. At least it's nice now. What am I going to look at? Desk Studio. Which one was it? So that's the VESA mount for it, for the Kensington docks. It'll actually clamp on the side of my desk. And that's the dock right here. It's Thunderbolt 4. So I want a Thunderbolt 4 dock. It'll clamp on the side of my desk, and you put in your, right here, you put in to the computer. I'll have headphones out, USB 3. It's just might just be power delivery. I'm actually not sure. I'll have to check that out later. Has a battery on it. And then UHS 2 SD cards as well. And then on the back, it's got, you can see both sides right there. SD, 12 volt power supply in, dual 4K. So I have to get a switcher here, Ethernet, and then 3 USB-A Gen 2 10 gigabit per second ports. And then I can just mount that on my desk with the VESA mount. So when I get that, I should be able to take my Stego hub, which I have plugged into my M1 MacBook right now, and then I'll be able to plug that back into my iPad, and I'll be able to run the iPad over into one of those rear USB-A ports as well. So it'll be getting power from the Stego hub, and it'll get plugged into this, and then I can actually get my iPad as a video source into Ecamm as well. I don't have that yet. And then I'd like to show off, I think we'll probably stream, what is it, about Kanban task managers. So I'm kind of been playing with those lately. My job situation changed recently, and what is it? And I just can switch up my task managers and basically how I do everything because I can. And I'll actually eventually probably get 2 of these Kensington Thunderbolt docks. I'm totally just finding an Amazon affiliate link if you care. That's it. You can see me finding it right now. Clearly. Text. There you go. So if you want to go straight to that and support the channel, Amazon affiliate link. There you go. Yeah, I'll probably get another one with the Visa mount with all that for my iPad as well. I'm not going to pay $63 in shipping. So $332 US, $443 Canadian. But I will do that and again do the same thing, just daisy chain it in. Yeah. Other than that, questions about craft, I'm entertaining them. Questions about strong towns, if you have those. I'm here for it. 10 people watching. I have no idea. I wonder what my biggest stream was. I was doing some streaming earlier in the year, talking about research and stuff. But I just kind of stopped because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. 10-9. Oh, back down to 9. I feel terrible. No, I don't actually care. One of the things I found the most freeing about doing YouTube again, and just doing YouTube in general, was when I decided I wasn't going to do what everyone else thought I should do all the time. This silly eCamp Live thing here. I was going to do whatever I thought was interesting all the time, which honestly was much better for me. Much better for me. So if you're wondering, like, is this going to be about craft all the time? The answer is no, it is not. It's going to be about me, whatever I think is interesting, all the time. What do I have to do? Academic paper. It's not going to be interesting for you. Should you put your WordPress plugin in the plugin repository? I care about this. I don't think you do, though. What would be a good one to go through together? Where do I have some of my inbox that I have? So you can do... There we go. Canadian privacy rules. Here's maybe this one. As you can see, I actually have a Devon Think link in here. My kids are going to come like any minute now, probably too. So this may get cut short when my family comes home. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So that's a Devon Think link. This works iOS and macOS just easily. So that is nice to have those things. Oh, have I ever been tempted to try to get all-in-one app for tasks? No, I haven't. Yeah, Gail, I have not. Because let's try that. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you think you can see that? Oh, except my pip's in the way. No pip. There we go. Gail says, have you ever been tempted to try to get all-in-one app? Do those tempt you at all, or were you already over the whole all-in-one app? And yeah, I've been all over all the all-in-one app for like ever, to be honest. I tried some of that with even my code editors years ago, using fancy ones like PHP Storm, and VS Code is the big one now that most people would look at, and I just... No, it's got all these other tools, and yeah, it does the okay job, like we're looking at your databases stuff, but it just was not my thing. Just not my thing. So, no. Nope, not tempted at all. Not tempted at all. I think bringing in useful information is okay. I'm going to bring this up in Obsidian. I haven't looked at Obsidian detailed in a while. There it is over here. So I think that bringing in, what's that calendar? Oh, there's a calendar plugin, community plugins. They're disabled. Let's turn them on. Turn safe mode off. And browse. So getting some of this extra information, so like the calendar widget here, so you can just say, hey, like what's happening in my day. If you use daily notes, that's good. I don't use daily notes, so it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, I don't use daily notes. That can be useful, and clearly advanced tables, I think that's useful there. That's more of just a feature enhancement. And the calendar is like an extra thing though. I just don't find that useful. I don't use daily notes. I've never got the daily notes thing, but some people like it. Day planner, maybe that could be useful. If you use it, again, if you use daily notes, that's useful. What else is in here? There's another, see there's a task manager one now, is there? Note refactor. Oh, there we go. Editor, templater. Like the template ones are useful. Markdown stuff useful. Minimal theme settings. Citations. Again, citations, I think that's just like a good add-on to enhance the functionality. Checklist. Is this the one you're talking about? Consolidate your checklists across everything? Nah, not interested at all. Again, like, can it be done? Yes, but it's not the best one. Something I always tell my kids is it's possible, it's just not very probable. And that feels like the same idea. It's possible to do this, it's just not very probable that it's actually a good idea to use Obsidian or Rome or Craft as a task manager, because it's not really that. Outside of, like I said, when I looked at in here, right, reading, not that. Of course, I can't just find it quick. Apart from my courses, reading well, right? I'm going to go through these resources. That's useful, but that's it. Like that's it. So I think I'm actually going to stream probably next Friday. I'll start fleshing out this course after I've done my YouTube video recording. So yeah, I don't think that's useful at all to me. Everyone wants to have this one tool, but I think it's just, you have a tool that is, again, cluttered up with crap you don't want, or it is just, and it's a bad task manager. So yeah, that's what I think. But honestly, if you like it, who cares what I think? If you think this is the best thing since sliced bread, I'm going to use it forever, who cares what I think? Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want, because it's your system that needs to work, not my system that needs to work. All right. Research paper from the University of York. Tags. All right. Racism is in here. I'm entertaining questions if you got more, so I'm kind of just filling time in some ways. Racism. Oh, space there. But it was taking it out on me. There we go. I know I have done in the past too. I wonder if I should do this again. Pull up Safari. And I have a, is it an epidemic sound? And I had a playlist on here. Log in. Just take that off screen. I actually don't like the Ecamm Live. Little overlay. Won't go away. Silly thing. You wish Craft had tags tool belt. So what I do is so racism is a tag for me. And I just drop them all in tags. Right? So I can look at workload. It's only one page so far. For managing, I can look at neuroplasticity. Again, one page. And just find those. I think that, oh, who does it? It's in this over here, isn't it? YouTubers. YouTube creators I learned from this here, and Brian Jenks, that's what it is. And his
links or tags in your Zettelkasten.
So this video he did here, links or tags in your Zettelkasten, how you do it. I think that was a good one. Tool belt. That was a good one about how to use tags as status only, and he used backlinks basically like I'm using what I call tags, but there's backlinks. So then he would say, so what I would say here is if I'm looking at, maybe, this might be the only time I miss the graph, because I don't normally miss it at all. It's one that I may have a bunch. Intention residue, I just saw, where'd it go? Intention residue? Yeah, so there's two links to this page. So I think it's useful if I'm gonna go find this and say, oh, there's like a whole bunch of links to this, because I've talked about this a bunch of times, right? The one thing links to attention residue. The organized mind, which I know I'm supposed to be talking about in book club soonish, but I just haven't finished it, so I kept delaying booking that at all. Right, finding positivity might be one, and clearly not. Right, is there glass ceiling? Like once you start getting a lot of links into something, so Dunbar's number should have. See, I feel like I've got more that I just don't have linked in yet because of system changeover. But getting into these things here, I think are useful. And once you start really getting into something, oh, you can see community. So here's one that I know, this page over here, community. This started out as a tag, and it started getting a whole bunch of other stuff. So strong towns, I've done that one. This is where checklist is useful as well. And then I know that I need to look up all these other tags, and I'm kind of linking community. And this will probably be a long-term research project. I'll actually probably break this out of the community tag and into a research project, like what makes a strong community from the infrastructure perspective, from not even just from the infrastructure perspective, but from like the city and what builds a community as far as people as well. Like, is it gathering places? Is it cycling? Is it what makes that close-knit community around you? And also like what city infrastructure helps. So I read Strong Towns, if you missed that earlier. The actual review of that will be coming out later, or you can watch the stream again if you want. Strong Towns was kind of my first book to read about that, but I've got one called Strap Hanger as well, which is about subway systems. So you're hanging on the strap, I guess. And I've got what else? Another one up there. I might even have it here. The Death and Life of Great American Cities? I don't remember. I got another one up there that somebody recommended a whole bunch, and then I just found it at my library as an on-sale book one time. The Abundant Community, maybe? Maybe it's that. Anyway, I can't see it from here. So that's how I use tags, and I don't actually care that it doesn't have official hashtag tags. Like, I don't actually care at all. I don't think that's useful. And then I'll actually go through when I turn this into something real as like a bigger note that turns into something else. So you can't see it now. When I go back and turn this into something else, this community note, like I'll actually go through like electric cars aren't the solution and all these other articles about what brings in the War on Normal People by Andrew Yang as well, right? There's no common burden as well. And I'll go back through all of these and really dig into it. But I'm just not ready yet for it. So for now, it's just kind of a holding place for me. So questions on anything, I'm up for it. I keep saying I'm going to, go through this paper. But I'm entertaining questions instead. That's totally cool. Yeah, this is one about from York University. Did I actually have the author in here? The Gene Augustine Chair. Not really. I'm thirsty. That was kind of my lunch, my smoothie. What was that I had? That was in Boys and Sex. No. So I remember reading, can't find it right now, but going to this quote that, in schools at least, that black girls are judged harsher than white girls, just because if they're louder, you think, oh, it's the loud black student. So Boys and Sex is a good one too. Good book to read. Oh, I see. I probably need to kill the pip so you can actually see this. I'm just seeing my beautiful face. Activities. Don't care about the acknowledgements. I should probably put the authors in here. So I always think at least that authors are going to be good because maybe I'll find like somebody cites this other author that I haven't really read yet, and I see it so many times, but that hasn't happened yet. But it's always what I think will happen. Turner at Rhonda George. I actually know a Rhonda George, not the same one, but I do know one. Oh, pound at Santico. There you go. Call those the authors. Yeah, that's right. It's the authors. Oh, there's a citation suggestion. That's cool. I was talking to someone. I've been doing some coaching around how to organize your notes, and someone asked me what I do with citations. Who is a doctor of, I forget, works in a school, and I was like, yeah, I do nothing because I don't have to anymore. I have a psychology degree. And that was good enough for me. I did enough APA citations then. So now, Saturday, April 1st, I attended a conference. I actually grew up near Toronto. Grew up in Oshawa. Just kind of like I say I'm in Vancouver now, but I'm actually, 60 miles east in Chilliwack. So my goal to start here is just to pull out some points, and I'll actually write like a description up here. It's also about schooling, inequality, economic inequality, probably qualifies as well. Inequality, create inequality, racism, inequality, schooling. Oh, probably education as well. Education. Again, just trying to make sure we link this note off to a bunch of things so that I can bring it up later as other things become interesting to me. Oh, that's right. I was going to do this whole Safari thing. I never got to it, did I? Unlock one password. I was going to give you some more than just my voice, a little bit of music in the background. You will have to tell me, though, where is my thing? One epidemic sound. I've got a playlist. I'm not sure if they're even public. Chill hop. That's what it is. Oh, it's coming up my speakers, though. And you don't want to hear that. And I should just do. Oh, it's coming out here. It's not catching my system audio now. I've done this before. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do it today, though. It's alright. No chill hop for you. Just for me. I'd like to eventually get like splitters and a bunch of other stuff so I can do that. But clearly I can't right now. Is that too loud? Hard for me to tell. Trying to keep it super quiet for you. That's just a little bit of background music. But I can send it into Ecamm. And since Ecamm's coming to my headphones, that works too. Okay, back to this. If that's too loud, let me know. If it's too quiet, if it's just okay, let me know too. But I want to listen to something. So I guess you get to too. Because you do. Because you do. Oh, if I touch my headphones at all, it goofs around, eh? I have multiple volume controls. There we go. Let me know if that's too loud for you and I will quiet it back down, but that's the attempt, to have some little bit of music for you in the background. So it can just be a chill. One of these days I'll actually stream, like Ben was asking earlier, about my keyboard I have here. I gotta switch the keys over and stuff. Got Kale Silvers in the background on my Moonlander. GTA is Greater Toronto Area, for those that don't know. I grew up there, like I said. Always hear when you're like, hey, we don't collect data about how policing or something is affected by race. I think that's dumb. Really dumb. We need to know this. Same with LGBTQ students. Wow, that's interesting right there. A student leaves his black school for the LGBTQ specific school, and he says the racism he experienced there was worse than the homophobia. Wow. It says he, so you see black. Oh, how to take smart notes. How did they get that out of homophobia? How long is this? I don't even think I'm going to get through this whole paper today. Let me see, what is it? 423. I should probably wind up, or 423. 230, 223, 1423. All right, the intro, methodology. I'm just going to skim this stuff because. So if you read a paper, just to like understand what it's talking about, you want to read the introduction like I just did. You can skip the methodology a little bit, just kind of understand, right? So here's the participants, here's where they were, great. Unless you're like really a science person. So I learned to read them in psychology when I took my counseling degree. I talked to people at the beginning, they focused on the group session, good enough to know, follow the presentations or a small group discussion about the stuff. And then they use the TDSP, which was a database of stuff. Like, that's really all we need to know. Database of outcomes and things that have happened. And then they did try to identify factors from talking to them. So that's good enough for me. The current context is, again, this is more of a report than an actual science paper. So it will have more to read in it for as long as they've been in Canada. Oh, another one was what was it just called? My wife got it for me. Oh, I forgot now. Jeepers. It detailed the racism in Toronto over the 2017 year. What was that book? Let me look it up because I care at this point. It was, what was it called? It was called Storygraphs Are On A Go. So I think a lot of Canadians look at it and say, oh, it's not me. Like, that type of stuff doesn't happen in Canada. Your Storygraph. Go away. View everything I read. Skin Written by Desmond Cole. That was the book. It detailed the racist events in Canada, in Toronto, over 2017. It's easy to say that it doesn't happen in Canada, but it totally does. Totally does. The US is just a little louder about it. That's it. And there's a paper, so I'm going to try and grab that. I'll give it my Zettelkasten prefix. That's going to be your suffix 404 2021 1426. Open this up. And this is I'm going to tag this as a paper. Yeah, that's it for now. And the paper is on, he says I'm, schooling, there we go. I actually even tag Canada in here. Because this is a Canadian specific thing and it's sometimes hard to find those. Cool, let's go back. Oh, that just turned it into a page, didn't it? It's not, see, that's not what I wanted. I still feel like sometimes you're like, not fighting craft per se, but not always happening what I wanted to. I didn't actually want to create a page, because that means it's not a specific note in my database. That means it's just a page. I didn't want that. I want, how do I do this again? I actually use this more on my iPad, which is why I'd eventually like to stream from my iPad. I'm just gonna leave it for now, I guess. I can delete it. That's what I'll do. I'll just delete it and add the development. There we go. We've got it. Now I can come in here and just remind myself this is a paper, so that I don't want to go looking for it later. I know that it's a paper. I know that it's a paper. I was 12 when that happened, 1992. I don't remember it at all. Doesn't surprise me though. White dude, why would I pay attention to these things? The whole world is my safe space. So when we say this, like back in 92, it is blacks are being shot and then being unemployed in excessive numbers, and yet we still do very little about this. Like, this is not, it's easy to pay lip service to it without showing a lot of action. That's probably a good point. Bob Ray would be our premier. To after, what was it called? Because that will be an interesting thing to come back to. The Young Street Riot. Bob Ray. No, we're not barking up the wrong tree. Bob Ray. Why is it showing you that? Not barking up the wrong tree. There we go. Bob Ray said that we have. How did they capitalize that? Yeah. Black racism. Okay, if you're just joining, because I see the numbers kind of flip around a bit, if you have questions about craft, about note-taking, about whatever I'm looking at, go for it. Kind of filling time. Doing a bit of it office hours. It'll be Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific mostly. Record some videos and then I'll do some office hours. And if there's no questions, I'll just keep doing research and you can see what I'm doing. If the music's too loud, let me know. Just haven't tried this in a long time with the music, so we're just trying to do better. Happy to answer questions about craft, obsidian, task management, bicycles. If you want to talk about bikes, I can talk about bikes. Running in the mountains, too. That's another good one. The lack of progress, they say, and this is shocking. It doesn't seem shocking to me. Again, we're in, and why no longer talking to white people at race. There's actually, if you're interested, the skin we're in and why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. I've done videos about those before, which you can find on my YouTube channel. Dumb things about seeing like, hey, look, we did another report right here. Is that, like, we've done these reports so many times and we keep saying, hey, look, it's surprising. We're terrible to black people when we're terrible to our indigenous. There's a bunch of indigenous First Nations reports like this too. And you know what happens? Basically nothing. We do nothing about it. So stupid. Oh, hey, Brevin, how's it going? I've been talking a little bit with you. 1 second, I'll look at your question in a second. Brevin, used Evernote and Bear, switched to Craft a couple of months ago, but doesn't miss tags. But doesn't miss tags a second? Using pages instead and saving these like Curtis and tags. Yeah, okay, cool. So there you go. Preben says, I'm right. You're right, Preben. Yeah, I don't miss tags that much. I think that doing like this is a tag, racism, like a backlink, just seems better to me. And then if it becomes something, when I expect that racism will become something, I have a bunch of stuff on schooling and out of, what was the book? I talked about it earlier. Something not to, basically said don't do schooling because most of schooling after like grade 9 is signaling I'll listen to rules. That's about it. The rest of it is not. So the rest of it is just useless. Unless you're not going to use much of your math after grade like 9, unless you become a math teacher or a mathematician. So we waste a lot of time learning stuff we will never use. Should even find that sometimes now when my kid in grade 6 is like, or grade 5 will be like, Dad, do you use this? And I look at her and say, I never use this. This is what calculators and computers are for. Although I guess it's in some ways it's a good idea to understand how the math works. But that's it. Ugh, that's terrible. Right here. My Karis did some good things, but my goodness, that's so terrible. No, not down there. Why'd that happen? Mike Harris was another premier in Canada. I actually remember him. I remember vaguely Bob Ray, but I was a little young then, maybe. Mike Harris, that's so stupid. What did it say? We'll call it in 2000. It's close enough, probably. Oh no, sorry, 1995. 1995, so it's not really close enough. Of course, Mike Harris is a white dude, so what does he care? He doesn't care. He got elected by a bunch of white people that said, I don't care either. Zero tolerance will also specifically target people of color. Right. Ugh, zero tolerance is so dumb. I think even like when you have your own kids, you know, you don't do zero tolerance because like my oldest daughter has things that you need to be a little harder on her for, and my middle one has different ones. Yeah. Do we use project notes? I kind of showed this earlier, Chris. Chris says, oh, my picture in picture goes behind that. There you go. Do you use, oh, he's Gail again. Add to broadcast. There we go, Chris. Do you use project notes? If so, how do you use them in relation to literature notes? I explained this a bit earlier, Chris. So I'll just keep it brief here. Kill that. I do. So I actually reviewed Strong Towns earlier, and I showed that, and I talked a little bit about it. So, courses, here's a project note right here. I'll have to go through these books. I haven't done any of them yet. I have read How to Read a Book. It's on my shelf behind me. You can't see it because you can't see me. And I'll go through that, and I'll pull out individuals. And so what I talked about earlier was Strong Towns. It'll be in my inbox. Where'd it go? Strong Towns. And you can see as I go through this, I have a bunch of, this is mostly literature notes, but then I link some of them out to parents over parenting themselves from Free Range Kids. Children are no longer responsible from chores, which also goes out to Why We Can't Sleep. And it goes out to Selfish Reasons to Have More Kids. And it goes out to Organic Community Once and Designing Your Life. And it goes out to Scarcity Captures the Mind from the book Scarcity. So it's a mix. And I think like later on, if I come into this and be like, ooh, I really want to cite this specifically, then I'll actually break this out into its own note. But for now, it's just a literature note that has some links to other things. I think the other things are better. And if we scroll down, yeah, the illusion of rationality got in there. That's more of a tag. Tag that the definition, I suppose, right? Sometimes like I'll do racism, but it doesn't necessarily not need an explanation. That sounds terrible to say, but I'm not going to explain it. But the illusion of rationality, I need to get in a little bit. And it also links out to Little Bets. So a book that I read recently. They focus on what you're willing to lose, right? Also Little Bets, which is another one. Again, car culture is just a tag. I might get enough stuff on car culture that it relates into community and other stuff that's important, but I don't for now. Same with commuting. There might be something later. Or where's the other one? This happens in part because we're bad at understanding the consequences of distant threats. And so this is where I went in and dug a little deeper into the note and actually wrote more about it. And then I also wrote temporal discounting. So this is page 57. So if I go into Strong Towns, the book here, which I reviewed earlier. Oh, go back to pick. This book here I reviewed earlier. That's actually kind of how we started this. This will be Fridays. I'll actually do my YouTube videos, record them live, and then stream and answer questions if you have it. But I actually dove into that. And then then temporal discounting I'll dig into later. That's something I need to do. So I actually have a, can I just open up a new window? There we go. No, not that. There we go, new window. So I actually have like a to summarize. In theory, I should go through here and summarize this. And I really should put temporal. So this is a terrible thing in craft. I gotta go space. So now I've edited my note and I go to all documents. Temporal discounting isn't in there, unfortunately. So I find sometimes it just doesn't update very well either, but I can't actually move, like from here, I cannot move temporal discounting in. I turn to a page, but I can't actually move it into the note at all. If I kill that, yeah, I can't do that. Temporal discounting. Here, actually, I guess I need to do this. Summarize. I don't actually care about that word or what it says. What I want to do is just take temporal discounting, drag it into my to summarize thing. That's it. So just stuff I want to come back to later and have a better summary of. That's how I do it. I hope that answered your question, Chris. Good enough. I was reading towards race and inequality. Seeing if we can get through this. Trigger Z. Oh, was I sleepy? I don't get it. Oh, the trigger for your Alfred thing. Alfred snippet. Okay. So Preben is sharing. He does a snippet in Alfred for creation of Zettelkasten ID. A suffix in the page title. Very handy. I could do that. So the thing I find, Preben, is that I use a lot of my shortcuts also on my iPad, and they're just not going to work there. So I just type them in. It could work, though. Like I have had. I don't know if this works in. No, it doesn't work. So I have an Alfred, I have a double D date, but it doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I killed it. In the future, I'd actually like to be steering from my iPad. And for these type of notes, I bring it as a video source, and then you can actually see like most of my workflow is on my iPad, not on my Mac here. Oh, jeez. The government was aware. No, this isn't proper grammar, but I want to tag it. So we should be Canadian government, Canada. That zero tolerance. Of course they knew since 1997. Do you know what? It's 2020 or 2021. They still have done almost nothing about this crap. Except for paid lip service to it. In 2007, they stopped zero tolerance. The roots of youth violence. I wonder if I can find that actually in Safari. What's that called? Murray McMurtry. Download the print version. Look at that. No. Name. Oh, this is the review of it. Define two. Is that really what I want? Let's kill it. The executive summary. That's probably the most useful. the executive summary is the most useful to me because I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll add that to Devin Think for real. PDF paginated, clutter free. Let's tag it as racism, schooling, education. Ontario. What's that? Ontario. Canada. So I'm going to do all this tagging because it's possible that later on I'll have no idea what I just remember there's some report about there something in Canada schooling, and just look it up that way. Let's executee. Jeez. Always super cool when you get to like be watch typing. Let's kill that and come back over to Devin Think. No, I don't want to do that. There we go. Just make sure it got in there. Yeah, I got it. So now I want to grab this and say, that's why it takes a long time to read stuff. What? That's okay. I can go like this. 404. Let's change it. Should be 2. 404, 20, 21, 14, 46. You can come back over here and grab my DT is fine. Now I can find it later. No. Cool. Well, here's everybody back. So I'm gonna end it real quick right now, just because we're about to have like bad audio. Thanks for joining me. Tuesdays. So you know, probably we can ask that next time. Fridays 2 p.m. I'm gonna try and do Pacific. Try and do some streaming. But we're gonna end that right there for now because my family's gonna come in. I got cake to make for my wife's birthday. Thanks for joining me. You'll catch the beginning videos later. Have a wonderful day.